Look at this, IUIC St. Louis, all right? And there you have, and you can even tell that's a younger Nathanyel, right? You guys can tell if you follow these things. Jewish informant came back for a final recon mission on IUIC. It's got 16,000 views in 5 days. Look at that. And look who watched it. We got brother Daryl Muhammad. Fascinating. So these comments are just amazing in and of themselves. You know, IUIC is just filled with people who got, honestly, delusions and paranoia, to be frank with you. And, you know, when you look at this, I don't like this guy next to the bishop. He has a strange look. I'm glad the bishop did this interview to show us how crafty thine enemy is. I hate the dishonest nature of the person asking the questions. Sam got flustered when Bishop threw out that Renaissance book of medieval times. He was starting to get red. Sam, you're back, huh? This guy is an agent seeking information, that's all. Or you could say, you know, he's a journalist, you know, and it goes on and on and on like that, you know, bada. You see, there's a lot to it. Well, there's a bunch of this. So here's another one. IUIC, the Hebrew Israelite threat assessment interview. So actually, it looks like it's 5 years ago, at least this one from IUIC events. This is the original interview I'm showing you now, not the recently re-released one. 55,000 views, and they called it the Hebrew Israelite threat assessment interview there. And this was 5 years ago, so that's not 2017. If this is right, that'd be 2019. I'm not sure if they had put this right when it came up, but the comments are the same. Sam was nervous and scared as hell. I'm supposed to say as hell. This is why President Hoover said, okay, you're going. This white boy learned the truth. Okay. So Sam looks like he wants to join IUIC. Me too, Sam. I want to join. Something about his eyes that gives me pause. Most High, keep our brothers safe. I mean, these are really... Esau is nervous as hell. Okay, so you're getting the vibe here, but they put it back out again, and it's got commentary by people like Tahar. A few words on an interview between Sam Kestenbaum and IUIC. This is only 5 days ago. So now you've got GMS commenting on it. But here's the most problematic thing that IUIC did with this whole interview. Let me just show you real quick here. Look at the title here. Israelis send informant to conduct threat assessment on the Israelites. Now, IUIC prides themselves in being men who are honest. IUIC prides themselves as being men of integrity. This is the way they talk about themselves. The fact is, it's a sham. And titles like this expose the nature of what IUIC really is. IUIC knows it's not the case that the Israelis send an informant. And, you know, they're also kind of making it try to seem like this is current. Now, look, this is from 8 days ago. It's got 96,000 views. So the original one had 55,000. So I guess they've done what they want to do, which is more views. Now, why does IUIC want more views? IUIC wants more views because it equals more members and more support. So they can go trot around the globe telling people that they're Israelites. Well, this is dishonest, and it's also grammatically incorrect. Israelis, that should just be a plural of Israeli. Then why do they have the apostrophe there? I'm just saying. Well, Sam's not an Israeli, and he doesn't work for the Israelis. And if they're going to say he does, they need to offer proof. Doesn't the Bible say, in the face of 2 or 3 more things, a witness, 2 or 3 witnesses, the other thing be justified? So you can't just go around slandering people and just making up stuff. Can you, IUIC? But I guess you can. So the comments here are the same on this. 1,700 comments. This interview felt like an interrogation. Made me feel uneasy. So notice how much of this is emotional. Notice how everyone's like, you know, it goes on and on and on. The guy doing the interview doesn't sit right with me. Be careful, Israel. That guy, they got spooked, and when they saw the information and organization near the march in support of Kyrie Irving. So see, this is having the effect. This was before all that, but people who don't know what's going on, who just watch IUIC videos like zombies, to be honest with you, they think this is after the fact. You see what I'm saying? So they're, you know, successfully getting what they want to get. Well, let's watch some of this interview between Sam Kestenbaum, who's a legitimate journalist and has done some great work on the Hebrew Israelite movement in general, especially of the One Wise variety. He's one of the journalists that I commend to say, he's got his facts right, and he does good work, Shout out to my man DOC for Christ. And that reminds me, first of all, I want to give you the applause. I need to try to conduct things a little bit different here today, because as of last night, myself and Nate got together, Nate 2D2, not the Nate on the screen, over text, and we started a Street Apologist podcast. I guess I should have given that announcement somehow with more aplomb, as it were. But it is the fact that we are straight up having a podcast now. And what I mean by that is that this live stream gets edited and then uploaded to Spotify. One episode is already up. It's sort of a trial. It's sort of a test. But if you go to Spotify right now and put in Street Apologist, you'll find the first episode. And it turned out pretty well as an audio file. But certain things I did and say make it where it's obviously strictly for YouTube. So I'm trying to work it where this show is also helpful for people who are just hearing the audio. So shout out to you, Nate, for being willing to take on this project, and shout out to DOC and everybody else who's here. So do you guys want to actually look at some of this? I want to look at some of this. Let's watch some of this interview together. Here we go. This is Nathanyel and Sam Kestenbaum.
But in the end, it's going to be the largest. Okay. Right now you have Roman Catholicism, one of the largest religions, Christianity, followed by Islam. But the truth of the Israelites, this is going to dwarf everything.
Mm-hmm. So why did I take this clip out? First of all, I like the look at the comments down here. This interview should have broken the internet. People think this is like a really big thing. But Sam actually went to their headquarters, IUIC headquarters. This is a big deal for a journalist to do. He actually went to the headquarters. There he is. He's talking to Nathanyel. And this was uploaded 10 days ago. This is on the IUIC St. Louis channel. So even though it says video source IUIC Denver, because a lot of what I'm going to show is from IUIC Denver, multiple channels have re-uploaded this video across the IUIC channels. Not every single one, but Denver has, St. Louis has, and they broke it up into 3 parts on it. So you can see the source on the screen for this one. I don't want to change it in the text. But listen to this again. He's literally making a prediction here. Nathaniel's making a prediction that Hebrew Israelism is going to dwarf both Christianity and Islam. That's his prediction right here. Now, I've given my own predictions about this. And Nathanyel, I think your guys' track record with prophecies over there at One West isn't the greatest. So, I'm just saying. My prediction is that Hebrew Israelism has at least 20 years left of strong steam ahead before they start losing members. At that point, they'll start losing members. But they will be a sort of permanent thorn in the flesh of society and Christianity, but it is a much smaller clip. They'll eclipse Nation of Islam and most of the other alternative urban spiritualities. Now, I have reasons for saying all this. We could talk about it. This is speculation, obviously. But as far as their growth, the ascendancy, that has a limited shelf life. They're not going to stay on the ascendancy forever. And they're not going to eclipse Christianity, and they're not going to eclipse Islam. It's simply not going to happen. And the main reason is because it's a false religion, and it's too fractured and splintered, and it's really riding on the backs of the coattails, it's riding on the backs and off the coattails of Christianity. And so a lot of its sort of fortunes tie in with that.
It's that mustard seed that Christ mentioned in Matthew 13. It starts off the smallest of all. But the truth of the Israelites, this is going to dwarf everything. Mm-hmm. No matter what they do to me or any of the men right now, mm-hmm. It's going to continue. Once the seeds has been planted, then we're the people of the book. You can't undo that. Okay? Mm-hmm. Once it's like a blind man. Once you see, you're not going back to darkness ever again. You're going to stay in this. So that's what's happening right now.
When did you move out of your...
So that's his prediction. So this is an interesting interview. I think you can tell already. Would you guys like to see some more clips? Well, I've got plenty more clips. It's one of the shorter ones. But I played that first clip, 40 seconds. Now, let me play the next one. Just give me a second here. This is also 40 seconds. This is them talking about their globe trotting. So let's watch this. Here we go.
I think that's a more priority for you than for other camps?
Some camps Outside of the ones that came from the original school, they just say black only. You know, so for them,
For example,
you have camps. Not Crowley. I can't remember his name, but in the South, there's some.
not One West.
No. Outside of One West, there's some camps that teach black only, and not realizing that Puerto Ricans are our people because.
So this is interesting for a few reasons. One is he's talking about black only Israelites, as he terms them. So these are folks who don't accept the 12 tribes chart. And I know that a lot of us Christians are used to dealing with these guys who do promote the 12 tribes chart. But all of us should understand the 12 tribes chart and its acceptance is actually a minority position, even within the small religion of Hebrew Israelism. It's something that most Hebrew Israelites do not accept, for good reasons, of course. Now, he's talking about black-only Israelites as if that's the weird position. No, the weird position is the 12 tribes chart and putting all these other people in there from South America. That's the abnormal position, even within the parameters of your own religion, Nathanyel. And I think he probably knows that, but nonetheless, this is how he was raised as a young man, basically. So Sunday Vibe says, which 12 tribes chart? Sunday Vibe says, which 12 tribes chart? Because I've seen multiple versions. Because there's going to come another part in this interview, I don't know if I play it, where he talks about, that's why you see on the 12 tribes chart, Nathanyel says, down there at the bottom, it has Isaiah 11. Well, that's an innovation that IUIC took upon themselves. If you look upon older IUIC 12 tribe chart, they don't have Isaiah 11 down there, first of all. And second of all, this is somewhat different than the original. Because of that, there's another scripture they also put down there as well. And it's basically an excuse to go globetrotting. And then you've also got the differences the GOCC have put, as well as some differences by Sakari. So the groups basically take it upon themselves to make alterations. But the essence of it is the same. So he's talking about the one that Bibbins and Arya brought out. People that would basically say that Arya brought out under Bibbins, but they're talking about that one. So listen to what he says here again.
That's a more priority for you than for other.
Say black only, you know. So for them,
For example,
you have camps. What's this guy's name? What's the guy with the missing one tooth? He wears overalls.
Missing tooth and overalls. So he's trying to describe another Hebrew Israelite leader. I don't know who he's talking about. I'm not really sure who he's talking about. But I can tell you that one of the guys later on in the video says dowel. So when he says the guy with the missing tooth and overalls, because he's kind of describing what sounds like a country bumpkin, one of his men later on says dowel. I don't think Dow, I've never seen Dow have a missing tooth or overalls, but I don't know. That's what they thought. But it's funny that the way he describes other people as if their position's the weird one. Well, most Hebrews like groups didn't come out of One West. So you guys are in the minority.
In the South, not Crowley. I can't remember his name, but in the South, there's some.
not One West.
No. Outside of One West, there's some camps that teach black only.
Some camps?
Only, and not realizing that Puerto Ricans are our people because.
Most Hebrew Israelite groups teach so-called black only. And then he specifically goes to bat for Puerto Ricans who he says are Ephraim. And he's actually going to give his proof text here. I think we might have it up and available. Let me see if this is it. Let me see here. Do we have it up and available? What's the next one? Because these are supposed to be in. Let's see here.
Like, let me show you a scripture.
This is it.
But in terms of One West, you think that that's like a priority across the.
Pastor Downing. Downing is another one. Let me read this to you.
This is a comedy of errors right now. So this is the second part of the clip I just played. So Nathanyel goes, that guy down in the South who wears overalls with a missing tooth. And then someone says, Pastor Dow. Now, I don't think he's describing Pastor Dow, but this guy in the background says Dow. And then Nathanyel goes, Downing's another one. What I'm saying is, the guy says Dow, he says Downing. It's just a comedy of errors. Watch this, though. It's so funny because it's just misunderstanding after misunderstanding.
Let me show you a scripture.
But in terms of One West, you think that that's like a priority across the.
Pastor Downing. Downing is another one. Let me read this to you. Hosea 7:8. Ephraim, you are the tribe of Ephraim. He hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. So it's telling you that Ephraim mixed amongst the people. So they have very light skin. Some can possibly look like you. Some could be as dark as me. So the Bible tells.
So did you just hear that? He just told Sam Kestenbaum, who's Ashkenazi Jewish, some Israelites of the Puerto Rican variety could look like you. If that's the case, how do you guys all know that Sam's not an Israelite? You know? And you know what they usually say? Well, it's a spirit. It's a vibe. Now, what is going on in Hosea 7? What is actually going on? If you turn to Hosea 7, let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Hosea 7, okay? Because we're going to try to look. So in Hosea 7, you have a situation, and I got my notes up here, so I'm going to look over here, where there's a threefold accusation against Israel by Yahweh through the mouth of Hosea, right? And these are basically complaints against Israelite society. Then the first is basically that crime is rampant in the society. People are cheating. You got thieves. You got gangs on the streets, everything, right? And he says, you know, you guys have forgot what I told you, and you're not doing it, right? It's just a bunch of evil. And then you have some parts here in verses 3 through 7 of Hosea 7 that are a little tricky. You know, it's like what it says. There's some things that they're vague, but the basic idea is clear. And you basically just see the fact, and I'm looking at it, you can look at this because I'm giving you a little context. It says, with their evil, they make the king glad, and the princes with their deceptions, they are all adulterers like an oven heated by the baker who ceases to stir up the fire. So notice, it's even saying there, the adulterers are like an oven heated by the baker who ceases to stir up the fire. From the kneading of the dough until it was leavened. So that kind of bread baking analogy is earlier referring to someone else as well. And has nothing to do with the way they look. On the day of our king, the princes became sick with the heat of wine. He stretched out his hand with scoffers, for their hearts are like an oven as they draw near, and they're plotting. Their anger smolders all night. In the morning, it burns like a flaming fire. So notice how there's a lot of sort of oven, baking, heating analogies here. All of them are hot like an oven, and they devour their judges, and their kings have fallen. None of them calls on me. So that's important to understand. Hosea chapter 7, verses 3 through 7, because that's where 8 comes right after that. So after talking about the corruption, then you have the falling of Ephraim mentioned, which, you know what, I guess I should I just bring it up on the screen so we can look at it here together? Sorry. Because you know, he's mentioned this briefly, and I wanted to show you a fuller context, because then what you can see the fact is that this whole section has those type of analogies, and it's clearly not talking about the way people look or anything like that. Okay, that's not what it's talking about. So here, let me switch over. And by the way, make sure you like this video, please. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Type of content on this platform. And, you know, it's not always easy. And so I appreciate the people who help support. And later on, I'm going to give a shout out to some more of you. And by the way, if you're a Patreon, remember that this Sunday we do have a meeting. After everyone's getting done with church, we're going to have a little meeting there it's really a hangout, Patreon hangout. Okay, so I got the Legacy Standard Bible open to Hosea chapter 7. And here's what it says. Ephraim mixes himself with the peoples. Ephraim has become a cake not turned. Strangers devour his power, yet he does not know it. Gray hairs are also sprinkled on him, yet he does not know it. So the pride of Israel answers against him, yet they have not returned to Yahweh their God, nor have they sought him for all this. So Ephraim has become like a silly dove without a heart of wisdom. They call to Egypt, they go to Assyria. When they go, I will spread my net over them. I will bring them down like the birds of the sky. I will chastise them in accordance with the report in their congregation. Woe to them. So this is just talking about Ephraim. Now, sometimes Ephraim will be used as a stand-in for other tribes as well in certain contexts, but we can say it at least means Ephraim, right? For they have fled from me, destruction is theirs, for they have transgressed against me, and I will redeem them, but they speak lies against me, and they do not cry out to me in their heart. When they wail on their beds for the sake of grain and new wine, they gather together as sojourners. They depart from me, although I discipline and strengthen their arms, yet they devise evil against me. They turn, but not upward. They are like a deceitful bow. Their princes will fall by the sword because of the indignation of their tongue. They will be this will be their scoffing in the land of Egypt. Now, why am I reading all that? Because first of all, it's important to understand this is a complaint or a judgment text by a prophet of Yahweh against Israel. Specifically here, this section is dedicated to Ephraim, at least Ephraim. Now, it's not reporting about the way they look. That should go without saying. I think it's rather obvious, but this text has nothing to do with the way they look. But it's important to see what was before it, because you see all those baking and cake and heating and wine and food analogies. So that's part of the context there of Hosea 7. So we're in Hosea 7. Hosea is one of the minor prophets, right? And when we look at it, we kind of get some more information. So have you guys ever seen this passage or heard it used? It's important to understand he is using this text to try to prove that Puerto Ricans are Hebrew Israelites. I don't know if everyone follows what's happening. So he's talking to Sam. This is a reporter, and he feels like he wants to, in this interview, make sure that he understands why Puerto Ricans should be considered Israelites, even though some other Hebrew Israelite groups, I mean, mostly all of them, don't accept them. Understand? And so you have Yahweh talking, and you have this idea of, I'm generous, but I got to drop this upon you, right? This judgment. This is the context, right? And then you get these actions described here in chapter 7, and it shows that Israel does not have any remorse, but she does have guilt. And you see that people are trying to make the kings happy by their evil and make the king glad, right? And that's not good. And then you have these different types of similes for unfaithful Israel having to do with ovens, cakes, and then you have doves and a treacherous bow. So it's 4 different similes. So this is important to understand, because Hosea, I said analogy, but I guess simile is more accurate. Hosea is using similes to describe the unfaithfulness of Israel. So at one point, she's compared to an oven, another place a half-baked cake, another place a silly dove, another place a treacherous bow. So this is describing their passion for evil, how treacherous they become, how foolish, how useless. This has nothing to do with their color. What he's trying to say is this shows that Ephraim is not completely dark. Ephraim mixes himself with the peoples. Ephraim has become a cake not turned. He's trying to say this is why Puerto Ricans are of different shades. This is why they look different ways. That's why some look white or yellow. And he even gives Sam as the analogy. I'm talking about what some people say as far as skin tone and all that. Do you understand this? What he's trying to say? Now, there's a Hebrew word here for oven, tanur. It's repeated 3 times in these verses, verse 4, 6, and 7. And it usually has to do with these little fixed structures, but sometimes they can be portable too. These little ovens. They're made from, I'm looking up, I got some notes on the culture here right now. Earthenware, and they're used mainly for bread, okay? And so there's these comparisons that are overlapping here. And what does the heated oven most likely represent? It has to do with the idea of passion that doesn't go away. And so this is a burning element to it. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like this passion that is sitting there smoldering, and then it goes turns on, blazes like a flaming fire. So when you follow the analogies or similes in the verse, you understand what it's talking about. And so this passion devours them, their rulers and their kings. So some of this probably has to do with Ephraim's final hours in a political context, because 4 of the last 6 kings of Israel were assassinated. Sometimes you have Hosea saying Ephraim, but really meaning all of Israel. And that's important to understand here too. A lot of people don't realize this. In lots of places, and I hinted towards this earlier, you'll have Ephraim used as a stand-in for all of the northern kingdom. Now, why is that important? Because he's trying to use Ephraim just for Puerto Ricans, but Hosea most likely is using it for all of Israel. This is a frequent thing the prophets did when you see it. And I think it even shows it in this context, because it says Ephraim in 8, but then in 10, and it's on the screen. So I know some of you are listening on the podcast, but if you're following along your Bibles in Hosea 7, you'll see it. And I'm sorry to spend time on this, but I want to deal with the verses. Now, this is not Sam's job. He's a journalist. He's supposed to just listen and take notes and all that, and he does a good job. This is our job as Christians. What is the text really about? It has nothing to do with Puerto Ricans being light-skinned, okay? And look, gray hairs are also sprinkled on him, yet he does not know it. Is that literally saying something to do with like, oh, well, Puerto Ricans have gray hair or something? Because that sounds like a physical description, doesn't it? That's not even about a cake. It's talking about Ephraim, the northern kingdom, is in her final years. This is not their youth. This is at the end of the kingdom. I think that's what it's saying. Do you guys understand? It's saying, you don't know, but you're old, you're aged. You're about to go. This is very important. Now, the mixes there is a Hebrew word balal. balal, and it is associated with cooking, specifically blending ingredients together. And so this links it together with the baker of verse 4. And what it's saying here is that Israel's apostasy, her chasing after foreign gods, it's talking about that. It's saying that Israel's apostasy, Israel's love for idolatry, that has made Israel indistinguishable from the foreign nations around it. That's what it's saying when it's saying mix with the people. It's saying you're putting these ingredients together that shouldn't be put together. And so now you have an improper product at the end, a cake not turned. It's half baked. It's not fit for eating. Understand? That's what it's saying, because the cakes, especially that had honey, and again, I've got cultural notes on this, so I'm not just making stuff up. And sometimes they would have figs and grape juice actually in there. They had to be turned while baking. So the whole point of this is that their idolatry has made them indistinguishable from the pagan nations around them. Not that they mixed with people who were of a lighter skin and now they look lighter as Puerto Ricans. That's not what it's saying. And besides, this is bizarre because he's referring to how did Puerto Ricans come about? The Taino natives, Africans imported, and Europeans, usually Spaniards. This is a modern thing that happened under colonial rule in the modern era. But yet this is talking about something in Hosea's day. Do you see how utterly ridiculous this is? But this is what he was taught, and so he goes with it. Now, I have more I could say about this text. Let me just say one more thing. Ephraim has become a silly dove. If I was a Hebrew Israelite, guess what I would do here? And I'm reading from the Legacy Standard Bible. It's my new favorite. A silly dove. What color are doves? Doves are white. This is saying the Israelites are white. Because they're like doves, and doves are white, don't you know? So Israelites are white. Check it out. Does that help? Does that help? Noel Maldonado says, we Puerto Ricans are light-skinned because light-skinned people lived for a long time. It's not new to us. Also because of slavery, that's all. If you live on the island, all that sun naturally makes you dark if you are a true Puerto Rican. Well, appreciate you for commenting that. And I just want to say, whappa. All right. So let's go back to this interview and keep
mixed with the people that enslaved them. Some camps accept that, some don't. Say, no, Puerto Ricans are not people. You understand?
Mm-hmm. And when you say camps, but though you don't mean one West camp. As far as you know, all
right.
West hold to that. Okay.
Yes. So you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to play it one more time.
What the common term today would be mulatto. Like, let me show you a scripture.
But in terms of one West, you think that that's like a priority across the...
Pastor Downing. Downing is another one. Let me read this to you. Hosea 7 and 8. Ephraim, you're the tribe of Ephraim. He hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. So it's telling you that Ephraim mixed amongst the people. So they have very light skin. Some can possibly look like you. Some could be. You can't have a woman that's contrary to your way of thinking. It's going to fall apart.
Are you a revolutionary man?
I am. I'm God's revolutionary man.
Don't you just love that clip? I'm glad that Sam asked that question. This is kind of funny. So Sam asks him if he's a revolutionary. All right, this is what he asks him. And he says, I am. I'm God's revolutionary. So just in case you didn't know or you haven't heard it, thoughts? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Pretty interesting, isn't it? Yeah. This is God's revolutionary, he's saying. Nathanyel from IUIC is God's revolutionary.
A woman that was by his side. Mm-hmm. Same with Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. You can't have a woman that's contrary to your way of thinking. Mm-hmm. It's going to fall apart.
Are you a revolutionary man?
I am. I'm God's revolutionary man.
So every it would be like this. Is it a
God's revolutionary? He is God's revolutionary. Thank you,
You're
Sam,
a
for
woman
asking
that
that
was by his
question.
side. Same with Martin Luther King.
You a revolutionary man?
I am. I'm God's revolutionary man. They tried to kill me too, but that's enough.
So this is the clip I played in the beginning where Nathanyel is talking about when he left the 12 tribes school. So that's a school that he was in for a while. So since this is something we played at the beginning, I want to come back and we're going to play this. But first, it's time for us to take our first break, our first commercial, and then we'll be back in a little bit to continue an analysis of this interview between mainstream journalistic reporter Sam Kestenbaum and Nathanyel from IUIC. Don't go anywhere on Street Apologist Live. You want to hear the rest of this interview. Trust me. Let's play this. Here we go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Street Apologist Live. How are we doing today? It's great to have you with me and be with us. And please be sure to drop a like on this. Please share this link. And please comment in the live chat and underneath the video. Greatly appreciate that. So let me quickly tell you about a few programs coming up here. Can I tell you about a few programs we have coming up here? If you go on the YouTube channel, we've got a number of them. And one reason I'm going to do this now real quick is because the professional Ox says he wants to know my thoughts on what Putin finally revealed. Well, I'm actually going to address that coming up here in a live stream next Thursday. And it's going to be Abu is going to be on for part of that program. And then also we are going to have Dr. Bob, who's an Eastern Orthodox expert, if you guys remember him. They're both going to be on, probably not together. And so that is coming up soon. Let me show you the thumbnail for that real quick here. That's going to be in 6 days from now. The thumbnail says icons revealed. You can find this on the youtube.com channel, as well as there's an event set up in Facebook. And it says, did Putin reveal truth about Israelites? The time may change on that, so stay posted. And we're going to be covering that. And then we're also going to be covering something that I've never touched before, but I think it's time for me to deal with this white supremacist Nick Fuentes, because I'm seeing people support him, and it's really annoying me. So that's in 9 days. We're going to deal with him, and I'm going to say, Christian, stay far away from this guy. That's going to be the main message, and I think it's going to go good. We may even hear from a couple Roman Catholics who have a similar opinion about him, because he's supposed to be a Catholic guy. But then next show is in 4 days. It's Tuesday, and it's going to be called Beef versus Dow. There's a major shakeup at Straightway Truth Ministries versus Charles Dow with one of his main elders, and we're going to cover it right here. So that's what's going on. And now let's get back into this interview with Sam Kestenbaum, a professional reporter who does great work on religious matters. He really doesn't cover the Hebrew Israelites much these days anymore. He mainly does what is kind of called weird religion, NRMs, new religious movements, and he does some of this on the podcast side of things. And speaking of podcasts, go to Spotify, look for Street Apologist, and you can now hear this on Spotify. We're working on getting in iTunes and other places, but myself and Nate, the podcast manager, are working on this. I see Alton Johnson and Jesse Walsh. Please subscribe to their channel. They both do great work. And let's get into this next segment. This is the second segment. I want to play a little clip that I created of this, and it's the only one that has the captions and stuff like that, and then we'll analyze it, okay? So let's play that now. This is from the interview.
They tried to kill me too, but that's another story.
Really?
Well, they said, one brother said, I had a dream that you were teaching the Bible, and there was a long line of us with bats. and we treated you like a pinata. I said, y'all hitting me? He said, yeah, we were trying to kill you. And then when you died, we all went into the kingdom of heaven. So I said, really? So I better get out of here. These people are going to try to kill me. So I was out.
And so because had you been kind of speaking against or...
I was speaking against the doctrine of not keeping the commandments. Now all of a sudden, I was the evil one. So I said...
Okay, so this is from the interview with Sam Kestenbaum. You can see Sam there with a number of IUIC guys in the background there in New York. A lot of people don't know about this with Nathanyel, but Nathanyel was with House of David after One West, which at the time was called the ICUPK. So after the ICUPK, Israeli Church of Universal Practical Knowledge, at one point it was called, when he left the ICUPK, he went to House of David with Mashah, and then after that was something called the 12 Tribes. When he was at 12 Tribes, there's a lot of rumors about what happened. There's a rumor that one of the leaders, to show you didn't have to keep the law, made everybody eat ham sandwiches. Now, Nathanyel's saying he stood against that, what he would think of as being antinomian strand that had crept in. Okay, this is from his perspective. But people who were detractors of Nathanyel within the One West spectrum, they claimed that he was the one leading the charge, making people eat the ham sandwiches, and then later repented. I don't know what the truth was because I wasn't there, but somebody was making somebody eat ham sandwiches at 12 Tribes of Israel, apparently. And Nathanyel says that they tried to kill him when he was about to leave out of 12 Tribes of Israel. And Sam says, really? And the way he describes it is, well, a guy says he has a dream that we were all beating you to death with bats and then went into the kingdom. Honestly, all I can say about this is that, first of all, One Westers be having a lot of weird dreams, and they put way too much stock in them, and they simply shouldn't because they're basically a delusional religion, frankly, and I say that with all due respect. You should stop believing your dreams because that's really all what your religion is. It's a product of your own mind, frankly. I just need to speak to you directly, guys. And honestly, this also shows that Nathanyel, from a relatively early stage, because he was a younger man at this point, he's had a martyr complex. From a relatively early stage, he's had a martyr complex. This doesn't even say they were trying to kill him. It's a guy saying he had a dream about them killing him. And he's saying they're trying to kill me. Like, Nathanyel, speak truth, man.
Interesting.
I have to go. This is straight madness. The story.
Really?
Well, they said, one brother said, I had a dream that you were teaching the Bible, and there was a long line of us with bats, and we treated you like a pinata. I said, y'all hitting me? He said, yeah, we were trying to kill you. And then when you died, we all went into the kingdom of heaven. So I said, really? So I better get out of here. These people are going to try to kill me. So I was out.
And so because had you been kind of speaking against or...
I was speaking against the doctrine of not keeping the commandments. Now all of a sudden, I was the evil one. So I said,
interesting.
I have to go. This is straight madness. So
these are the kind of stories they claim, okay? This was something that Nathanyel thought he should tell this New York Times reporter. He used to be in one of the groups supposedly tried to kill him. Do you guys understand this? Imagine saying, I was leaving that church and they tried to murder me. All right, let's watch this next clip here.
Keeping the law. I need to kind of...
they were going to try to kill me.
Okay, that's the same one.
Really?
And he's the one who brought it up.
One brother said, I had a dream that you were teaching again. I said, we got to start again.
So in this clip, Nathanyel's talking about the very beginning of IUIC. And I think he's saying it was Kanai who came over to his apartment there. And this is around 2003 or so, 2002 or so. And they say, hey, we got to start this again. So this is the beginning of it. So he's leaving the organization that was going to try to kill him, 12 Tribes, to start IUIC, which is about 20 years old now.
Oh, that's how it started.
What was the breaking point for you at 12 Tribes?
It was a group of brothers went to...
This is a wild story, too. So in this clip, Nathanyel's talking about things that happened at 12 Tribes. Now, understand, when One West fell apart, there was a few groups that came out of it. One of them that was 12 Tribes. Nathanyel was with 12 Tribes for a while. And so this is what he's going to be talking about. And by the way, I see we got a super chat. I know that you people on the podcast can't see, but I have a dog treat here, and I give one to Adrian. Here you go. I give her dog treats when people give super chats, if I remember, and if she's in the room. So thank you, Larry Love, for the super chat. All right, here we go. He's going to tell the story, and it's a pretty wild story about something happened. And remember, he's already said that 12 tribes, they tried to kill him, and now he's going to say something else that's pretty wild. Remember, this is his own religion that he comes out of. He's talking about
Dominican Republic. And I said, don't go, because in Dominican Republic, there's a lot of prostitution because our people are poor. I said, don't go, so you're going to make a mistake. I'd say about maybe 11 of them went. They all came back and said, listen, we all fornicated. Couldn't help it. The women were too beautiful. So they said, we don't want this Bible stuff no more. We just want to do what we're doing. So, and then what happened was...
So he's saying that the 12 tribes had 11 people who went to Dominican Republic on a mission trips and ended up spending time with women of the second oldest trade, or whatever people call it, instead.
Were they there on like a mission of something?
Yeah.
They were there doing
they
like...
said, we're going to hand out flyers. I'm like, I told them don't go. But I was a young guy. But I'm like, they wouldn't, man, we're going to go, we're going to do it. So, all right. Sure enough, fornication all over the place. Condoms flying, all kinds of stuff. So that's what's going on. Yeah, that was going on. So that.
I don't know if you heard of it. Sam said, quite a visual. This interview is funny. So this is between Sam Kestenbaum and Nathanyel, the leader of IUIC. This interview happened like in 2019 or so, but they're just now putting it out. So this part's a little older, a little longer. This is a 5.5 minute clip.
He's looking at me like...
Okay, now first of all, I know this is awkward because I didn't cut it. There's a reason why I have the format like this, okay? So I know that if you're watching on podcast or listening on podcast, you can't see what I'm saying. But you know how when you screen record, you can cut it so it becomes horizontal so it looks better, like it's not just off your phone. Well, in the video I have up in front of me, I didn't do that. I screen recorded. Most of them at this point have been horizontal. This one's vertical because the reason is I wanted people to be able to see the comments. So notice here in the comments there, I know you might have to zoom in if you're watching this, and it says, wait a effing minute. Did y'all pick up what Sam said at minute 46:19? So they're saying there's something we need to watch at 46:19. So I have this part out. And then the other comment says, Tone Gambino says, wow, with your threat. Wow, with your threat. So I'm going to show you something here. But I need you to listen carefully to pick up on it, okay? With that comment in mind from this interview.
Germany, France.
Listen to this.
Who wrote the Hebrew?
Was Arya the person who, you know,
hold on,
probably
hold on.
Specifically, you're... Right. This would be like Arya's thing.
I know we had the.
I mean, was Arya the person who revealed or introduced that language to the community? Okay.
So first of all, they're talking about Lashwan Quadash, and Nathanyel says yes, Arya is the one who brought it out to the community. That's what he's saying. Okay. Now keep on listening.
They had a Hebrew script which looked very similar to Arabic. It looked similar to that. So I remember sitting down with Masha.
So Masha is one of the key leaders, one of the original 7 heads, a man who was loved and sometimes called Moshe. And Masha here is with Nathanyel, according to this story. And listen to this. This is about the Hebrew that they've created. Not just the language, but now they're talking about the script. Listen to this part of the discussion. This is kind of a bombshell. So everyone, please pay attention to what's happening here. Listen to this closely, okay?
I said, where can I find this? Because I could go to books and see the ancient Hebrew in what's that guy's name? Who wrote the Hebrew? What's his name? From Jerusalem. Ben Yehuda, right. Eliezer Ben Yehuda. Thank you, brothers. Eliezer Ben Yehuda. You familiar with him?
Yes.
He's the one from 1948, around that time, who concocted. Mm-hmm. Can I use that word? Concocted today's Hebrew. And when you read about him, he took the words from Arabic, Germany, France, and made a new language. And when the Caucasian from World War II, from the Caucasian who came from Poland, Ukraine, Russia.
Okay, so this is kind of a sidetrack, but Eliezer ben Yehuda was a Russian Jewish linguist. You can read about this. I have a little source up in front of me. This is common information about him. And he was a lexicographer and a journalist. And he did do the first Hebrew dictionary. He was a lexicographer of the first Hebrew dictionary and was the editor of a Jerusalem-based paper, which was one of the first Hebrew papers published in Hebrew in Israel. All right. And so there was a revival of the Hebrew language, and Eliezer ben Yehuda did lead the revival. Okay, that is true. He's buried, by the way, in the Mount of Olives. And so this is a pretty amazing thing that he did, where he was responsible for a revival of Hebrew. And it's a long story. You can read about it. But what Nathanyel was trying to say is that he made up a new language. Made up a new language. And this is not true. And it is interesting to read about him and his legacy and what he did. But he's not responsible for inventing a new Hebrew language. He's responsible for reviving Hebrew amongst Jewish peoples. That's what he's responsible for. And by the way, Nathanyel, you should be glad, because if that revival never happened, your teachers could have never learned the little bit of Hebrew they did from the Ashkenazi practicing Jews in the regions of New York that they learned Hebrew from and then taught a version of it to you years later. I think you should thank Eliezer ben Yehuda, because otherwise you wouldn't have your Lashawan Kodash.
Came to the land, they had to study his new form of Hebrew. You understand what I'm saying? You look confused.
No, I'm with you.
He's looking at me like, what are you saying?
No, I'm with you.
Okay, so that language is made up.
He just said that modern Hebrew is made up. But watch this.
Not the pure language. And this is what many Israelite camps argue over. And never understanding what we read earlier, Zephaniah 3:8-9. You remember that? Yes. What did it say?
Yeah. The language will come,
exactly.
Next time, right?
So they reject it and go, no, we have to do this language. That was going.
But they were kind of. But they also weren't using the white man's language. They were using different. I hadn't heard of this kind of Arabicized.
Oh, I'm glad you reminded me about that. So I asked him, I said, I can see the ancient Hebrew in books like Eliezer ben Yehuda, but where did the script come from? He said, we made that up. I said, oh. So all that always stuck in my mind. It always stayed with me. So I didn't make a big thing of it.
So he just went on this big rant about Eliezer ben Yehuda making up Hebrew, supposedly. And then Nathanyel says, where did the script come from that we have for Lashawan Kodash, supposedly? And he says, I made it up. And making a script for a language is like a big deal. You have to have a certain level of understanding and training. And Mashah didn't have it. Neither did Ariyah. And these guys are making up a script, derivative of the Hebrew, and saying they made it up.
Eliezer ben Yehuda, but where did the script come from? He said, we made that up. I said, oh. So all that always stuck in my mind. It always stayed with me. So I didn't make a big thing of it. I just filed it.
And so why did these elders make up this?
Because the languages we have is not our language. Just like our names, our surnames, they're your names.
Right.
So notice he's like, why did they make up this script? Why did they have to do that? And he's like, well, because it's not the original language. And then he basically throws a smokescreen into the conversation where he starts talking about names people are given, saying, well, these aren't real names. But that's different than making up a language. So it's like he's basically just changing the conversation. So watch this. Let's look at this.
What's your last? Kestenbaum, right?
Kestenbaum.
You'll find some family with the last name Kestenbaum. Look it up. You'll find them. They're out there. But all of our people have European last names because those names are slave masters' names.
He's basically saying that Lashawan Kodash is like Hebrew X. Where Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little, And a common practice of the Nation of Islam was to change the last name to X because the idea is it represents an unknown, a variable that you don't know. And so since people were renamed forcibly, European names usually, since that happened, the idea was you say, I don't know my real last name, but I'm going to become X as a recognition that I don't know what my name was. So it's something that I'm changing it, but I don't know what to change it to, but I'm getting away from the European name. So now it's X. It's like he's basically saying that with the Lashwan Kodash script, apparently, or perhaps Lashwan Kodash itself there. Interesting analogy.
So right. No, I don't mean to be dismissive of this at all.
But you understand?
Yes.
You agree?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I understand absolutely, I understand the what you're talking about.
Can you tell black people their names is not theirs? Just tell them.
I'm not going to say that to the camera. Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. Did you speak the Lashon Kadosh?
The Lashon, yes. Lashon Kodash. Abanawa, Shabbat, Shemayim. Yes, I did all of that. Shemai, Yasharallah, Elohenu. Yes, I did all of that. But now it's past.
Yeah. Now, you still use the Shalom greeting.
Yes, we still do.
Well, Shalom, of course, is not Lashon Kodash, as Sam knows and Nathanyel knows. Shalom would be like what Hebrews would say to each other for real. Did you notice how dismissive of it was? He's like, yeah, I was taught that pure language or attempt at retconning a pure language, but that's all past. I don't use that anymore. Notice how Nathanyel was just totally thrown Lashon Kodash into the dustbin of history. He even has names that are basically racial slurs for it. He's called Lashon Kodash Hebonics. What? And so he just spouted off what he must have learned when he was in his 20s, some of the Lashon Kodash, and it says, but that time's past. I don't use it anymore.
Like even the names that we have. Let me read the scripture to you.
Please.
Okay, so before he does that, let's go to Zephaniah, okay? Let's go to Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9, okay? And let's find out what is actually being said there in Zephaniah 3, verse 9. Does it have something to do with the actual language? Is that what it's about? Does it have to do with Hebrew versus some kind of other language? Okay, let's take a look here at Zephaniah 3:9 together here, because he brought it up because this is a common passage that's used, okay? And I'm going to use the Legacy Standard Bible, the IUIC, the Legacy Standard Bible, the L. I think it's important for us to look at these verses that they so commonly use, and obviously I think we all understand that they misuse. All right, so here we got it right here. Bada boom, bada bing, and we go into this, and then I'm in Logos. Okay, so here's Zephaniah chapter 3, okay? Now look at all this. This is about the rebellious of God's people who really are not God's people because they're not drawing near to God, right? They're not trusting God. And they have false prophets that they're listening to. Do you see all this? This is all there. And God's saying, I've cut off other nations, and you guys are about to be laid waste to as well. I'm going to pour out my anger upon you. Therefore, wait for me, declares Yahweh, for the day when I rise up as a witness, indeed my judgment, to assemble nations, to gather kingdoms, to pour out on them my indignation, all my burning anger. For all the earth will be devoured by the fire of my zeal. And that's how, of course, the Apostle Peter says the world will end. Fire being consumed, not with water like the first time when you got the post-Diluvian world. For then I will change them to peoples with a purified lips, that all of them may call on the name of Yahweh to serve him shoulder to shoulder from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. My worshipers, my scattered ones, will bring my offerings, and that day you will feel no shame because of all your deeds by which you have transgressed against me. For then I will remove from your midst your proud exalting ones, and you will never again be haughty on my holy mountain. Now this is all fascinating. This is talking about a kingdom where the people who are supposed to be God's people are actually God's people. Now, do you see this? This has to do with language that's pleasing to God. It's not saying you're going to speak a certain kind of specific Hebraic language. Now, will we have the ability to speak other languages or to speak Hebrew in the kingdom? That's possible. That's not impossible. God could do that. He did something like the reverse of that, or when he in Acts chapter 2, when he did something like that in Babylon in a way, right? But look at what this says here. I think this is a good, helpful, understanding what's really being said from Isaiah 57, creating the praise of the lips, peace to him who is far and to him who is near, says Yahweh, I will heal him. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet, and its waters toss up refuse and mud. There is no peace, says my God, for the wicked. But notice here what it's talking about, the praise of the lips. This is what it's talking about, God's people who have a purified speech at this point. It's not dealing with some kind of pure language. Oh, look, unadulterated Hebrew. Because guess what? There was a lot of people who were wicked during the days of Jesus Christ who could speak pure, great Hebrew, or during the days of Moses when Korah had a rebellion against him. And yet, they weren't pure or perfect. They weren't speaking pure with their lips, even though they were speaking the real Hebrew as it would be understood. So what's this talking about? This is talking about purified speech, not speaking accurate Hebrew or something like that. And look, you can even get it from the very next line, that all of them may call upon the name of Yahweh. Your other translations will say Lord. It's saying they're going to be faithful with their lips as well as with their life. This is the opposite of what happened in Isaiah 6 when he recognized that, woe is me, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell among a people of unclean lips. So Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9 has nothing to do with speaking some kind of real Hebrew. It has to do with speaking purely to God. Do you guys see that? I hope that we see this. I hope that we see this. Let's play this clip again here.
You understand what I'm saying? Look
where he's claiming. Here's what's going on. We are watching parts of an interview between Sam Kestenbaum and Bishop or Elder Nathanyel of IUIC. IUIC is the largest One West type Hebrew Israelite group that exists, approaching 10,000 members somewhat soon, I believe. From what we can tell, they may be as low as 5,000, but somewhere in between there. I think we can say 5 to 10,000. And you have Sam, who was written for the Forward, which is primarily deals with issues relating of Jewish interest. Wrote for them as a staff writer for a long time there at the Forward. Now he's freelance or independent, as he likes to put it. But he's also done some stuff for the New York Times and a pretty big piece in the wake of the situation that happened with Covington High School there in January of 2019 with House of Israel, that whole showdown with Nick Sandman and all that jazz. Well, he wrote a good piece upon the events surrounding that, the larger issues there in the Washington Post, not to be confused with the Washington Times. And now, back in 2019 or 2017, I forget exactly when this interview took place, Sam is interviewing Nathanyel, and he's asking him some pretty informed questions for a journalist because Sam does his homework and research and knows what he's talking about, and he really got some great clips out of this and a lot of important things. Now, with all that being said, we've been watching these clips because recently IUIC re-uploaded this interview as if it was a new thing and calling it Israeli threat assessment, or a name similar to that, Israeli or Jewish informant, because Sam is Jewish, but that's not what he's saying. So let's continue on here.
We have to do this language. Mm-hmm. That was going.
But they were kind of. But they also weren't using the white man's language. They were using different. I hadn't heard this kind of Arabicized.
Oh, I'm glad you reminded me about that. So I asked.
So we're continuing on here as they discuss the language that they basically made up at One West.
Shah said, I can see the ancient Hebrew in books like Eliezer ben Yehuda, but where did the script come from? He said, we made that up. I said, oh. So all that always stuck in my mind. It always stayed with me. So I didn't make a big thing of it. Mm-hmm. I just filed it.
And so
I made that up.
Why did these elders make up this?
Because the languages we have is not our language. Just like our names, our surnames.
That doesn't mean you need to make up a new language, though. And this is why Nathaniel doesn't even use Lashon Kodash. If you notice, IUIC doesn't use Lashon Kodash. It's Israel united in Christ. It's not Yasharallah, united in Yahushai or something like that, you know? Very fascinating, right? Very important, right? All right, let's continue on and look at this here.
Be dismissive of this at all.
But you understand?
Yes.
You agree?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I understand absolutely, I understand the what you're talking about.
Can you tell black people their names is not theirs? Just tell them.
I'm not going to say that to the camera. Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. Did you speak the Lashon Kadosh?
The Lashon, yes. Yeah. Lashon Kadosh. Abanawa, Shabbat, Shemayim. Yes, I did all of that.
Uh-huh.
Shemai, Yasharallah, Elohenu. Yes, I did all of that. Mm-hmm. But now it's past.
Yeah. Now you still use the Shalom greeting.
Yes, we still do. We don't like even the names that we have. Let me read the scripture to you.
Please.
What I like to show you, and I need you to understand that what we do and or say is based on scripture.
Notice how the two scriptures he's pulled so far that we've dealt with, we've showed that he's yanked them entirely out of the context, applies them in a way according to one West tradition, not in a way contextually derived, and not in a way theologically, historically, or linguistically accurate. And they're simply proof texts used by his cult. That's simply all they are.
I don't want you to think that I'm a mad scientist. I sat down in a laboratory one day and I just made stuff up.
Did I say this?
No, I'm just, taking precautionary measures.
No, but you know what's funny? He says that, and yet he just told a story how Mashah said they made up a Hebrew script. And they talked about the 12 tribes earlier, and they claim they got that from some kind of divine revelation. So he may not be the mad scientist, but Bibbins and Ariah certainly were.
Isaiah 44:5 says, "One shall say, I am the Lord's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob. And another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name of Israel." Meaning, we shall start to return to our true surname, which is Israel. Mm-hmm. This is prophecy.
Right.
And this is what we're doing today. This is why many of us take the surname of Israel today. Because the names that we were given were your names.
Right.
That was branded in our backs and on our mother's breasts. So we have to give those names up.
Why did you form IUIC?
He just claimed there.
IUIC was formed, like I said.
He just claimed there that the reason why they're naming themselves again Israel is basically in prophecy from Isaiah 44. So here's what Isaiah 44 says, starting in verse 1. "But now hear, O Jacob, my servant, Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus says the Lord who made you, who formed you from the womb and will help you. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I will pour water on the thirsty land and streams on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon your offspring and my blessing on your descendants. They shall spring up among the grass like willows by flowing streams. This one will say, I am the Lord's. Another will call out on the name of Jacob. Another will call on the name of Jacob, and another will write on his hand, the Lord's, and name himself by the name of Israel." So is this saying that they're going to be named Nathanyel ben Israel, such as his name? No, it's simply that the Lord's people are going to identify themselves as the Lord's people. So this is a good thing, because if you look, this is sort of imagery that shows a conversation from different people who are God's people that's filled with enthusiasm. And so you have these people bearing fruit in their life, and they're identifying with Yahweh directly. I'm just saying, they're saying that they're the Lord's servants, not that they're going to rename themselves Ben Israel.
Mm-hmm. Understanding that in Matthew 19, a young man asked Christ, "What shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Christ said, if you want eternal life, keep the commandments. And observing all the camps, the splinter camps in Harlem, Philadelphia, Chicago, nobody's teaching the commandments. It's always the white man, the white man, the white man. And like I said, okay, the white man did all this evil to us, yes. But at the end of...
So this is fascinating, isn't it? He just banged on all the other camps, saying none of them teach to keep the law like we do here at IUIC. They just talk about the white man. They don't teach to keep the law, number one. Now, some camps, they They do talk about that a lot. That's true. It's not like IUIC doesn't anyway, by the way. But I want you to remember the comments is on the screen there because we haven't got to the part yet, but where it says, look at this time code and look at what he says. We'll get to it eventually. I just need you to keep that in mind for later, okay? So follow along here as we go to the next clip here with Sam Kestenbaum and Nathanyel.
Am I a liar still? Am I still an adulterer, a thief, an extortioner? If the answer is yes, then we're not doing our job as a service of God. You understand? So we have to come back to the commandments if we want eternal life. A lot of nations accuse and know that Europeans have destroyed nations worldwide. In Saudi Arabia, what do they call Europeans? The Great, have you heard of it? The Great.
Isn't it funny that he gives Saudi Arabia as an example as someone who recognizes the United States as some kind of wicked imperialistic power? Saudi Arabia, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How did Islam spread out? It spread out from the Arabian Peninsula and conquered all kinds of peoples. And even today you have a king there. And yeah, they're better than some Arab nations, but that's not saying much. It's just a... Nathaniel, try to take your Bible into Saudi Arabia. Try to take your Bible into Saudi Arabia. See what they do. You know, I'm just making the point. Now, what he's saying is it's true, but they call the United States the great Satan and Israel the little Satan. A lot of their hatred has to do with the United States' perceived protection of Israel, and so that's where a lot of the hatred comes from. So the United States is the great Satan, and Israel is the little Satan. Anyways, I'm not saying he doesn't have any kind of a point there, but it's just interesting to bring in additional context.
You never heard that before?
Okay, sure.
I know you heard of it. Yeah. So it's not nothing that just came out of America. A lot of nations say that. Say, listen, look what all they've done. So, okay, they did that. But if I...
By the way, he doesn't think that's wrong. He thinks he's supposed to rule and conquer people. He just thinks that you shouldn't do it if you're a Gentile. But that's exactly what he teaches he's going to do.
I'm still having sex without marriage with my sister. Mm-hmm. I'm having children, not taking care of them. You understand? Mm-hmm. I'm of no use.
Sure.
You understand?
Yeah, I mean, but are you telling me that this doctrinal things that were happening at 12 Tribes? Don't flip to this yet, please.
I always got to go ahead and talk. I'm listening.
Because this history is very important too, the contemporary history, and that's really what I want to get here too.
Okay.
You know?
Yes.
He's saying I want to hear the biography and the history, not just your interpretation of these verses. So listen to this.
So the 12 tribes, you're saying that there was kind of this...
Now, when Sam says 12 tribes in this context, everyone must understand he's not talking about the 12 tribes chart or 12 tribes of Israel in a biblical sense. He's talking about an actual camp that was called 12 tribes. Everyone understand that Nathaniel was in for a while.
Doctrinal divisions about keeping the law, whether that needed to be kept or not.
I'll give an example.
Is that what, what caused that group to splinter apart?
Yes.
And when you left there, did you immediately go to found IUIC?
Yes, immediately.
And did you bring, so this was the first time that you kind of were really in a position of leadership.
Yes.
And did you bring kind of most of that camp with you?
No.
Okay.
I had to start new. One brother came with me that was Kanagabar. He's the bishop who's along with me.
Okay.
Only him. And I had to find him because when that fell apart, many people got disheartened. So I looked. My car broke down, and I needed help with my car. So I said, "Who knows cars?" So I called Kanai, and he came over to help me with the car. So I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He was like, "Nothing." I said, "Listen, we got to start bringing this truth back out again because what we've been through is hell." Mm-hmm. So he said, "What do you have in mind?" I said, "We got to start again." So that's how it started.
What was the breaking point for you at 12 Tribes?
It was a group of brothers went to
So we heard this part about the Dominican Republic.
Right. It was still going on for a little while.
Okay.
So I left.
Okay.
Started.
So it was really kind of a personal decision that this place is not keeping. Was it really you?
Things like that. And you can't figure out and don't keep the commandments.
A personal decision that this place is not.
Yes.
Here we go.
Did not break apart.
It was still going on for a little while.
Okay.
So I left.
Okay.
Started.
So it was really kind of a personal decision that this place is not keeping the law.
Exactly.
I need to kind of
They were going to try. They tried to kill me too, but that's another story.
That's where he claims they tried to kill him because someone had a dream.
Well, they said, "Oh, I had one brother said."
For the next clip. All right, let's keep it moving. Go on to the next clip here. That one was 4 minutes and a half. Okay, so look at these comments. This is what I was talking about earlier, where people were. Look what it says here. Did y'all pick up what Sam said at 46:19? Watch.
Okay.
So the 12 tribes of Israel was a relatively short-lived camp, and what and so there were some kind of doctrinal differences.
Yes.
That
don't keep God's laws. That was the difference. Don't keep the laws. And don't get me wrong. It wasn't just from House of David and 12. That's the way I came. There were other Israelite camps.
And I'm still
came from that.
Still in my mind, I'm still with your with your thread. I know that there are a multiplicity of other ways people came into this.
Did you guys hear it? If you didn't hear it, it's probably because you're not a Hebrew Israelite. If you heard it, then you're a Hebrew Israelite. So notice I had that clip up for a long time where I had it cut according to the phone parameters so you guys could see some of the comments underneath the video, right? And I hadn't got to yet. I just kept on saying, remember this. They're saying around the 46 some mark. Look at what Sam says. And then someone says, wow, with your threat. So Nathanyel was asking, Sam is asking Nathanyel about his basically personal biography, right? And coming out of 12 tribes after House of David, after Old One West, right? And he says, well, I'm still sticking here with your personal. And what word does he use? Does he say threat? Which doesn't make any sense in the context. Listen closely to what he says. And how paranoid do you have to be to imagine that Sam said thread here?
With your, with your thread. I know that there are.
Did he say threat? He said thread. He said, I'm still sticking with your thread here. And if you watch the video, he even makes a hand symbol, a hand gesture that's like a thread. Because he's talking about I'm following your trail, your path. 3 different people, at least in the comments, interpreted it as Sam saying, I'm sticking with your threat. That's what they heard. They think that Sam is just saying to Nathanyel, we're talking about the threat that you pose. Remember, this whole interview is called threat assessment. So this, I think, shows the power of suggestion. Do you guys understand how funny this is?
With your threat, I know that there are a multiplicity of other ways people came into this.
Right.
All right. Well, I hope you guys got that part, and I think it's fascinating. But this shows you the level of paranoia that exists within Hebrew Israelism. It's pretty intense. It's pretty intense, this level of paranoia that they have. All right, next clip. Sam says, I would like to be at some of your events, and I'd like to be like a fly on the wall at some of these discussions. That's what Sam's going to say, okay? Listen to what Nathanyel says. It's like he's trying to make a joke, I guess. But listen to this. Listen to what Nathanyel says when Sam says he wants to be a fly on the wall, indicating he'd like to hear the conversation. Watch this.
Again,
a fly on the wall?
The kind of like lived things, right? Just
Okay.
if I could be like a
fly on the wall?
That's what I want to say. But
what happens to flies on the wall?
They get squashed, right? A guest, a guest without.
He's talking about being a guest at an event to hear like a normal Passover discussion or something, right? And Nathanyel goes out of his way to say flies get smashed. And Sam doesn't even say be a fly on the wall. Nathanyel says be a fly on the wall. So Sam was looking for the right phrase, right? And then he says, yeah, they get smashed, right? And Nathanyel reaches back in his chair and goes, they get smashed. Whoosh. Do you guys understand what he's saying? It's an implied threat of the final violence that awaits the Ashkenazi man, basically. Revelation 2:9-39. That's what he's talking about. But it's like, bro, you're not violent. We know what you're saying. We're not dumb.
Again,
a fly on the wall?
The kind of like lived things, right? Just
Okay.
if I could be like a
fly on the wall?
That's what I want to say. But
what happens to flies on the wall?
They get squashed, right? A guest without a notebook or my reporter hat on. You know what I mean? Just to see what like the kind of congregational life is, right? But anyways, that's I'm just.
This clip is one of the longer clips.
Like to make predictions about that.
Predictions are dangerous.
And so, do you think that
This part is so good and so telling. There's so much here. This is where they talk about the false prophecy of Nathaniel's old teachers. By the way, it should let you know you were taught by false prophets and you shouldn't listen to what they say. But nonetheless, you're passing on their teachings, even though you know they're false prophets because of this prediction that they made that never came true. Now, he's going to try to parse it out, but listen to this. We are watching an interview between Sam Kestenbaum, a mainstream reporter who covers weird religions and still does so to this day on different podcasts. And he has written for the Washington Post, New York Times, and Forward, amongst others. And in this part of the interview, which is 5, 6, 7 years old, but for some reason IUIC just recently put it up and said that the Israelis sent an informant to do a threat assessment against IUIC. Watch this.
Your older teachers in One West, did they misstep in the year, I guess?
The year 2000.
Yeah.
Making reference. Well,
Yeah.
Yep, and that was a big debate at the time.
Did they misstep? He says, did your old teachers misstep? And Nathaniel just said, yep. Now, Sam's not going to say it the way a Christian apologist would. But what we would say is, wasn't it clear that your old teachers were false prophets? By definition, they made a false prediction that didn't come true, and why are you still honoring their teaching then? That's not from the Bible. Come on now. Shout out to Alan Torres for the super chat. Alan, let's give the dog a treat. Here you go, Adrian. Thank you very much, Alan, for sponsoring today's show, my friend. Listen to this.
I was a young man, about 23, 24, and I would listen to the elders discuss the year 2000. Masha, for example, would say, hey, that's not what Christ said. We shouldn't teach it. Another teacher would say, yeah, we can teach that.
He's talking about division amongst the seven heads about when Jesus will come back. That should let you know right away, get out of the organization. It shows you, even frankly, as a young man, with all due respect, that you did not have discernment. Isn't it obvious? I think it's obvious. By the way, I know I just gave a shout out to Alan Torres who gave the super chat. There's two people that I want to thank who gave on PayPal recently. Edson Ferrara, thank you. He said, God bless you, brother. Thank you back. And Jakub Ruzika, I want to thank you as well. And it looks like Jakub is setting up a regular recurring donation. You can do that on PayPal. I don't know if you know you can do that. So thank you very much. You guys are also what I consider sponsors of the show today.
You know,
Who's the other teacher?
There was a few. But Masha and Yaikwab were against.
Masha and Yaikwab were against the year 2000 prophecy at Old One West. Why is that significant, ladies and gentlemen? Yaikwab is Ariah's father. So his own father, who brought him out of the Commandment Keepers with Edward Meredith Bibbins, his own father is saying, we shouldn't be teaching this year 2000 prophecy idea. But guess what? There's lots of videos of them teaching it. They even went on Montel Williams and taught it.
So that's what happened with that. So, but learning from that, it's dangerous when you put dates. Like the new date is 2019.
I love that Nathanyel used this opportunity to bang on people like Dante Fortson and the Teo twins, who all said that in 2019 they were going to be out of captivity and that was going to be the end of everything. It was going to be like a new Exodus. And now they've changed the dates a bunch of times. Teo twins have updated that date so many times. Dante's trying to redefine what the 2019 prophecy meant. But at least Nathanyel learned from the first time getting back in the year 2000 not to do this. And so when 2019 rolled around, he said no. And in fact, most One Westers did not believe in the year 2019 prophecy. They basically had a thing. It's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me type of thing, you know? Or as George W. Bush would say, yeah, you can't get fooled again.
Some people say, based upon Genesis 15:13, the 400 years of slavery, but that scripture is making reference to ancient Egypt.
Look at that. Nathaniel does know how to look at context. Yes, that scripture is referring to ancient Egypt. So Dante, Teo twins, all you guys, even Nathaniel knows you're wrong about that Genesis 15 false 400-year prophecy. Thank you, Nathaniel. You got it right.
Okay, because if you examine history, like when we went to Ghana, it said the slave trade commenced in Ghana in the 1500s. So 1500 to 2019, that's not 400 years. It's a lot longer.
Good point.
So it'd be a mistake to say, listen, 2019 is the year.
That's a great point, because you can't make it 2019 based upon 1619, because that's based upon America. But he gave an example from Ghana that it's not just about America. These are great points. So it shows when Nathanyel steps outside of his own tradition, he maybe does have a chance of interpreting the Bible decently every now and then. Just got to take the blinders off.
Mistake. It's the same thing. Year 2000, 2019. It's the same. 95.
Right. Okay. So it had already been.
Yeah,
right.
but
So it's funny that Nathanyel is like at the school and doesn't even know the basis for the year 2000 prophecy. Yes, the new millennium had a lot of nutbags in a rage, including some that would describe themselves as evangelical Christians. It was an embarrassment, frankly. But it was more than that. They used passages that had to do with different. And actually, it's funny, Gabar from GOCC, who's no longer with GOCC, and the reason why they gave the year 2000 prophecy. But on a more historical level, you are influenced by F.S. Cherry. Because F.S. Cherry, according to Fawcett, who wrote the book Black Gods of the Metropolis, a book that everyone needs to get, it's dated, but it's still very, very important for urban apologetic considerations in the prophecy. Now, there's some debate about that, and Fawcett did make some mistakes at certain places in the book. Cherry was teaching the year 2000 prophecy. Now, if that is true, this explains a lot of things, because guess what? Edward Meredith Bibbins lived in Philadelphia for 15 years of his life, in case that F.S. Cherry influenced Edward Meredith Bibbins, who then, after he left the Commandment Keepers later on, would influence. So who knows? This year 2000 prophecy may go past Arya back to F.S. Cherry.
by that time, the thought of teach the year 2000 was
had
already
taken root. Okay, and it was already sparking debates.
Yes. The New York Times did an article on it, and some of the members are in that. And I got the article at home. It's funny. You know, they said a big mothership is coming to save black people. They made mockery. That was the New York Times.
Now, it's funny that he says that. You know, they're making mockery in New York Times and all that. Now, they don't teach a year 2000 prophecy, but they still teach all the stuff with the UFOs. You guys know that, right? They still teach all that about the UFOs. The IUIC imagery is filled with UFO stuff. You guys probably know that. In fact, recently I played a song on my shorts, one of my shorts I did on YouTube. It was all about that, you know? And this is something that's not just only with IUIC. The Nation of Islam has something similar with the ships. In fact, even here in Phoenix recently, they premiered a movie January 20th. This is promoted by Wesley Muhammad, called The Coming of God. White Copper world premiere. Ilya Rashad Muhammad presents a Nation Brothers film. And this is here in Phoenix, Arizona. And look at this. The Coming of God with the big mothership. So he's talking about a New York Times article that covered this situation back in 2000, not with the Nation of Islam, of course, but with the old ICUPK.
Must have been about kind of end times. All sorts of people talking about end times, right?
They interviewed a whole lot of people, right.
I think I remember that. Or I have seen it in the archives. So they made a misstep, but at that point you were kind of you had left that camp with Masha. So
that camp was already infiltrated and it fell apart. Remember I talked about the FBI agent provocateurs? The same thing happened there. For example, sometime before I left, when I was still there as a young man, some Rosicrucians pulled up and had a meeting with the leadership there and offered them a blank check to change.
They made a misstep, but at that point you were.
Listen to this.
You had left that camp with Masha. So
that camp was.
Nathanyel repeats an old One West canard that supposedly some Rosicrucians came to the old school and offered them a blank check. Now, Wikipedia, here's how it describes Rosicrucianism. A spiritual and cultural movement arose in early modern Europe in the early 17th century after publication of several texts announcing the world to the world a new esoteric order. Symbolized by the Rosy Cross or Rose Cross, there have been several Rosicrucian-inspired organizations since the initial movement was founded, including the Order of the Golden or Rosy Cross, Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And they've got their manifesto here, as well as some of their symbols and whatnot. These guys are going to claim that Rosicrucians came and offered the ICUBK a blank check to change their teaching. And he's going to claim some Israelites took the bag.
Already infiltrated and it fell apart. Remember I talked about the FBI agent provocateurs? The same thing happened there. For example, sometime before I left, when I was still there as a young man, some Rosicrucians pulled up and had a meeting with the leadership there and offered them a blank check.
Masha, the secretary, Masha, Arya, some men are here to see you. Who is it? Who's here to see us? It's your 1 o'clock. It's the group of Rosicrucians. Oh, yeah. Tell them to step on in.
To change and alter the doctrine. A blank check. They said, whatever you want to write in, just fill it in. So Masha denied it. All praises to the Lord. And that was early, like late 80s, early 90s. Then, because I heard about it after the event. Then.
So Nathanyel just believes this story. The level of gullibility to trust that this story happened, to me, is shocking. Cults deceive people.
When the school had split, that same thing came again, and you got all these, things occurring out there amongst the Israelite camps. So that's why I said in every Israelite camp, there are agents there.
In every Israelite camp, there are agents. These guys think that world powers, Jewish cabals, governments, and other such agencies, I guess some from the Vatican, and probably Masons and everything else, even though Hebrew Israelism was started by Masons, have infiltrated every Hebrew Israelite camp there are.
Black men, Latin men, black women, Latin women who are there to cause confusion and cause disruption in the body. But they're going to fail. You're going to fail.
You're going to fail. I'm talking to you agents out there. How do you know some agents aren't in the room right there with you? Huh? How about that?
I want everybody to know that. Okay.
Have there been like kind of recent problems with infiltrators?
Always. There's always going to be problems.
Okay.
Always. And especially.
We've got this nonstop problem with infiltrators. So this is convenient. You know why? Because when they kick somebody out of the school, when somebody acts up, what do they say? Oh, they're a government agent. They're an infiltrator sitting here by the white evil powers that be.
Amongst Israel United in Christ, like I said, we all praises to the Lord. We are the major vanguards for this truth.
The humility of IUIC. We are the major vanguards for this truth.
So we are seen as possibly, we have men and women in the military. They say, hey, you guys are on the FBI's list. The SPLC also put us on there.
Members of IUIC are on the FBI's list. Nathanyel, I remind everybody, is a former New York cop. Nathanyel has had members of his organization that when I go out there on the street and talk to them, go around to the vehicle that I drove up in and take video and pictures of my license plate. I've got it on a camera. I showed this video before. You don't have to take my word for it. And I talked to a guy who said he went and talked to IUIC recently. It's a guy I didn't know, but he talked to him in another state. And he just wanted to kind of tell me how it went. He said they did the same thing to him. During one of these interviews with Sam Kestenbaum, and by the way, I forgot to mention this clip right here is from the second interview. Notice how Nathanyel doesn't have that black leather biker jacket on. He has a purple shirt. That's because they actually did 2 interviews. Now, honestly, if you thought that Sam Kestenbaum was an Israeli Jewish informant, why would you let him interview you twice? It shows they don't really think that, and they're just titling that for clickbait. This is a second interview. I forgot to bring that out there that we're watching here. So this is really bizarre stuff, okay? You know, you have a former cop talking about that and all this, and it's like, IUIC has called the police on me probably 3 times, you know?
Hate group list, which is false, but of course it goes back to this. You know, they say, hey, if I hated you, I wouldn't even sit down here and talk to you.
That's not even true. You could want to use him. You could want to utilize him. You just already referred to him as a fly on the wall, going to get smashed. He's Jewish. He's Ashkenazi Jewish, and his ethnicity. Is that someone that you love? You know what they say? We don't hate him. We just don't care about him.
See what I'm saying? So they do all that they can to cause disruption so that they can see this fall, settle down, so that we won't do the work of God. Okay? But we're going to do it. And we need the people's help.
Now, did the kind of problems around the 2000
Oh, I got to rack my brain about 2000.
No.
Oh, you forgot all about it? This major false prophecy that your leader taught for 3 to 5 or longer years, according to all counts, that was a major letdown. You got to think about. I mean, see how these guys underplay and undersell the massive heresy that's come out of their teachers and that has been in their past. This is not ancient history. This is 2 decades or so ago. You know?
I'm trying to think now. I got to think.
Yeah, and this is where I hadn't kind of intended to go into this, but we've kind of led there. But was that kind of a cautionary tale for you when it comes to like the 2019 thing?
Yes, it is. It is, because I saw the dangers of it. I saw men. It's funny. It's kind of comical. It's sad, but
listen to this. He's going to talk about what people did at the old One West school because of Ariel's false prophecy in relationship to Yahushua coming back. These are his teachers.
Many men quit. They dropped out of school. Many brothers and sisters were in college. They dropped out because they said, hey, year 2000, Christ is coming back. And then year 2000 came and left. And you quit your jobs. You dropped out of school. Some people got rid of their vehicles, their cars. They gave to other people. Some even burned money. Some went on roofs with suitcases and basketballs waiting for.
So I've listened to this interview a number of times. And I can confirm other members who were there in the 90s have told me people did go on rooftops with suitcases. I did not catch that they also were up there with basketballs, though. Why? Was there a hoop up there, or were they going to... These were like the guys in school who always wore a pair of basketball shorts under their clothes so they could always be ready to ball. You know, those guys, especially like in the late 90s, you know what I mean? You'd be in high school, like, they're always ready to ball. You know, they would have pants on, full-out jeans, not even like, you know, strip-aways or whatever. The ones that button on the side and, you know, pull off. And they would always have those. Why were they on the rooftops with basketballs and suitcase? The suitcases, I guess, that's like, well, we're going to heaven. We need to change of clothes. I'm sorry. I don't want to laugh, but this is crazy. This is wild. Outwardly Crass says, getting some real Seventh-day Adventist vibes here. This is a great still image, isn't it, Nathanyel? Yahushua. Oh, let's play this music here. I am Yahushua. I am coming back for you, Nathanyel. Yahushua Bahashem. Come with me so we can rule these white people. You will have kingdoms under you, Nathanyel. Sorry. Okay.
Side of return, and he didn't come.
We got to watch that again.
Some people got rid of their vehicles, their cars. They gave to other people. Some even burned money. Some went on roofs with suitcases and basketballs waiting for Messiah to return, and he didn't come. So I saw it all. I saw it all. So when I hear people say, hey, 2019 is the year to 400 based on Genesis 15:13, that's a cautionary, moment for me. Hey, watch that. Don't do that. Don't drop out of school. Don't quit your job. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. And what happened to those people after it didn't? Nothing.
They went right back. Some of them went back to the Catholic Church, Baptist. Some went back to selling drugs. Whatever they were in before they started studying the Bible, 9 out of 10 of them returned back to their
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because their spirit was crushed and hurt because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I warn
Yeah.
all the members in IUSC,
Yeah.
don't do that. I saw where it leads. I saw the road. Don't do that.
Did you have any question yourself, like as on the eve of December 31st, 1999, like, or around that time, or were you kind of so fully certain that this was a kind of a miscalculation on their
I was
part?
already certain. Once I saw the dispute with the leadership,
Right.
and Mashal pulled the scripture where Christ said, "No man knows the day or the hour," that I was clear.
So Mashah and Nathanyel, according to Nathanyel, Mashah and Ariah, the two main heads out of the 7 heads, had a debate about this prophecy. And yet there's lots of videos of people like Tahar out there on the street teaching it. So obviously it was the order of the day, was to teach it. Nathaniel's presenting himself as the consummate skeptic who didn't buy into it. Now, we don't know if that's true. But here he's saying, well, Mashah pulled the scripture that said, no man knows the day or hour. Yeah.
Then, when I heard him say that, and based upon Revelation 7 that I shared with you, it said, when the 144 are sealed, then shall the end come. And based on the school, the size, we only had like maybe 500 people in the school.
So this guy thinks that before Yahushua can return, there has to be 144,000 Israelites. So do you guys understand when they're out there on the street, they literally think that they're gathering all the people that are needed on the 12 tribes chart in front of them to hasten the return of Yahushua. Notice, so part of his logic is basically cultic logic. What I mean is it's based upon the false presuppositions of his theology. It's inner cultic logic, right? He's saying, well, since I know Yahushua, I can't come back until there's 144,000 Israelites. The size of the school here in the 90s of ICUPK, it's only about 500 people. So Yahushua can't be coming back yet. Are you guys catching this?
So I'm like, well, this can't be it. This can't be it. So
500 people in
the old school,
in what was then ISUPK.
the original, yes.
Right. And were they the only group at that time teaching the millennium, the 2000?
That I know of, yes.
Yeah, all the other Hebrews groups didn't get caught up on that false prophecy, apparently.
You had another Israelite group called the Commandment Keepers under Wentworth, Matthews, and however they were trying to more so assimilate with Jewish Caucasians. They were trying to assimilate with them.
Well, that's the school that Edward Meredith Bibbins came out of, and the Ariah came out of, and Yaquab came out of, and I guess Mashah too, right?
So that was the only group that I was aware
In
of.
terms of like the kind of the One West.
Yeah, that was the only. One West was the only group that taught the importance of nationality and identity on the street. Like I said, the Commandment Keepers, they stayed indoors. I didn't even know they existed until the internet. I'm like, oh, who's that group? Because you'd see people walk around with tassels on, but they didn't have that fire like Christ had to wake the people up. But One West had that fire, and that's what woke a lot of people up. Like today, many of the groups that stem from them, they, which includes all the camps that you see on YouTube, they have that spirit in them to set fire in the hearts and minds of the people to wake them up. Whereas the other groups that are just Old Testament, for lack of better words, they don't deal with the New Testament, they don't have that fire.
Wow. Next clip.
Okay, but with us, the descendants of slaves, it's a danger. And you have to ask yourself why. Why is it?
So are you suggesting? Are you saying that that Kenai was a agent?
Oh no.
So to those who don't know, Kenai had some kind of conundrum. So Kenai was the only guy that started IUIC with Nathanyel. So this is like important person historically within IUIC. Kenai had some trouble, and he was asking him about Bishop Kenai, as he was called at the time prior to this. Sam asks him about Bishop Kenai. And he said, and Nathanyel goes into this long explanation about people being agents and all this. And so Sam, rightfully so, was like, wait, are you saying Kenai was an agent? So listen to what Nathanyel says.
No, not at all. I'm talking about the people around him. The people around him were agents. I am saying that. And I firmly believe that in every Israelite organization, there are agent provocateurs strategically placed there for the disruption of the organizations. Once they start to rise up, there'll be some foolishness caused, and they'll got to start from ground zero all over again. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so when you say Kenai will be back, what do you mean?
He'll be back. Once you, nobody that's removed from the body is ever. We don't leave them out there forever. Mm-hmm. In time, we tell them return. Like generally around the Day of Atonement, like when somebody is put out. Let's say someone's put out for adultery. We'll give them time. We'll say watch online. Stay in contact with brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so, if it's a male or female, depends. Then come Day of Atonement time, that's when you fast and all your sins are forgiven. We tell them, if you're ready to come back, and then they return to the body. That's always been our custom.
Right, okay. Kind of the steps of kind of joining back in or kind of gaining favor again or purifying yourself.
Exactly. Because
next clip.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So in this part, Sam Kestenbaum, a reporter, asked Nathanyel about the Hebrew Israelites who are supposed to be from Native American tribes. And Nathanyel says something mad offensive and patently false. Listen to this.
I guess I haven't seen as much.
Well, we get a lot on that. We have a lot on that. A lot of Native American Indians, what you're going to find out, Sam, is that most of them, the real ones, don't live on reservations. Mm-hmm. The ones on reservations, I'd say 8 out of 10 of them are what's called $5 Indians. You ever heard that term before? $5 Indian. What's the name of that term in the book? History? Damn, forgot the name. Those are Europeans who paid the city or state money to claim heritage of North American Indians so they can get rights to land, land rights. They're called $5 Indians. The Indians that look more so like me, dark skinned, they were moved off the reservations.
He just said 80% of Native Americans who live on reservations are actually Europeans. And he said that Native Americans who look like him, they were pushed off the reservations, and those are the real Gadites. Because remember, they think they're from Gad and from Reuben if they're Seminole. I need to show this to Phil Fox.
You can read about that in books on that thing.
You can read about that in books and on that thing. Okay, tell. I have the book Black Indians that a lot of them refer to, and a number of other books that they refer to, and no, you can't.
So a lot of the outreach, like in St. Louis, Louisiana, Montana, where you have many of the reservations at, we have sent men to go there and teach. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And we're
This is depressing.
kind of decode the other groups.
Well, the 12 Tribes Chart is an abbreviation for the Western Hemisphere.
So in this part, Sam asks Nathanyel about the 12 Tribes Chart, and he calls it an abbreviation for the Western Hemisphere. Now, calling it abbreviation doesn't make sense. I don't really understand how he's using that word. But it is all Western Hemisphere. Everyone over there is in the Western Hemisphere. And then he basically says, but there's other Israelites all over the world. Then what's the point of the 12 Tribes Chart? And that's what Sam is asking.
This is why at the bottom of the 12 Tribes Chart we'll have...
No. You guys put that down there, just like he's saying we'll have. That's an IUIC innovation. We did a whole show on that when they did it, about how they had changed the 12 Tribes Chart to basically give them an excuse so they can support their booster club and take trips to Freetown.
Like Isaiah 11:11. Let me show you that. Sure. Where it says, just to give you the heads up so you'll know exactly where we're coming from.
So understand, for years, One West has had a significant anti-African strand. IUIC is now going to different countries in Africa, basically claiming that some of you must be Israelites. All right, so they mainly use Isaiah 11:11. This section, regardless of how you interpret it, because there's different questions about timing and things like that and the meaning. But at the very least, this is the gathering of the people of Messiah together. And so you see God's hand involved in this, both in verse 11 and in verse 15. And it's described as a remnant that remains of his people in verses 11 and verses 16. So you see God in some way gathering his people here. This is not something that is done by an earthly power or something that an earthly power could prevent. And you sort of have this homecoming, as it were, of God's people. And you have it related to the first Exodus, which was, of course, deliverance from Egypt. And you have them being described as coming from Assyria, the coastlands of the sea, basically. From all over the known world, it's a greater Exodus thus far. So that's what he's trying to use, is that section of Isaiah.
I mentioned Afro-Iranians, Afro-Iraqis.
Because this dude actually said that there's Israelites in Iraq and Iran. Okay, if that's the case, how do you, determine who's who? Because the 12 tribe chart doesn't have anything about this in there. He says it's Afro-Iranians and Afro-Iranians and Afro-Iraqis. It's people who came from Africa. What's bizarre about that is this. Do you guys understand that they're pretty much kicked out now because of anti-Semitism, or they've left because of anti-Semitism and persecution and death and suffering and everything else. But for years, even until the 20th century, midway through is when a lot of this changed, there were communities of Jewish people living in Iraq and Iran, the two countries he specifically mentioned, called Mizrahim Jews. Mizrahim Jews, the ones that are from Iraq, were commonly called Baghdadi Jews. And the Persian Jews had communities there as well. We'll understand both those places, Iraq with Babylon and Persia with Iran with ancient Persia, both of those places, right, were places where Jews had been exported and expelled and exiled to during different captivities and whatnot. Now, what's my point by saying all that? My point is that there were Jews in the 20th century who said that their lineage, their roots went back all the way to those communities because not everybody returned to Israel. So there was a continuity all the way from the days of captivity and exile in these lands. They weren't from Africa, though. They're not Afro-Iranians and Afro-Iraqis. These were Jewish communities that stayed there that said, we're a continuous community all the way since back there. And they had some good evidence for it as well. But he's saying that's not them Mizrahim. And these aren't Ashkenazim, by the way. These are Mizrahim. Not them. It's the Afro-Iranians and Afro-Iraqis. And by the way, 12 tribe chart says nothing about that. Yet he's just making it up. No, this religion is insane, honestly. This religion is crazy. And Nathanyel is making his own version of it at will.
When you read Isaiah chapter 11 and 11, it says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush," as you know, that's Ethiopia, "and from Elam," that's India, "and from Shinar," that's Iraq, "and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea," like the islands of Cape Verde, various islands scattered around. "And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth." So you have the outcasts of Israel, the dispersed of Judah. Now the 12 tribes chart that we have listed, we don't go into all of these. We just go to the ones we're very familiar with on this side of the world, according to Genesis 49.
But see, Nathanyel, Ariah says that 12 tribes chart came to him by divine revelation. How do you then get to change it? Do you understand that even with his own religion, this is a form of heresy?
33. So it's limited like that. However, at the bottom, if you'll notice, we'll put Deuteronomy 28:64, Isaiah 11:11. Yeah. So people are aware that there's more than just what we have there.
I see. Yep.
You guys ready for the next clip? Some of you are getting clipped out, but some of you are really into this. And I know some of you have just now come in. So I appreciate all of you as we go upon this special edition of Street Apologist Live. Next clip with Sam Kestenbaum and Nathanyel.
And can you tell me a little bit about that? I guess I haven't seen as much.
Well, we get a lot on that. We have a lot.
Okay, we already watched this one. My bad.
A lot of Native American Indians, what you're going to find out, Sam, is that most of them, the real ones, don't live on reservations. Mm-hmm. The ones on reservations, I'd say 8 out of 10 of them are what's called $5 Indians.
Here's a little clip.
Went over your head, I think. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. How could you read that and go, that doesn't include Africa? You understand?
I heard you.
Do you understand that? So among
Well, it's funny he says that, but Old One West said it doesn't include Africa. So how could they read that and say that then? But also, that means you got to include Europe.
all people means exactly what it says. Like, there's a movie out there, I forgot the
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Okay, so just one or two more from, hold on, let me see here. Okay.
Nation of Islam. Allegedly, Umar Gaddafi gave them, I think, something like $5 million. I can't remember the number.
Now, look what this says at the bottom. Look at these comments. Never miss a jump to belittle the woman. Damn shame. She poor misunderstood black man in purple, or the poor misunderstood. So that's someone being critical of them, saying they're being critical of women. Look what this says. This guy wants to find out how to identify an Israelite so they can target us with famine, although it says feminine or femin, famine, pestilence, and other evil. He repeated that question. Listen, this is what they're saying about Sam Kestenbaum, the journalist. He just wants to kill the children of the woman, but the Lord won't allow it. And then this guy says they're trying to find out how many members. What they really trying to find out is there 144,000 of y'all trying to find out how much time they got left. So understand, the Hebrewites think once they hit 144,000 members, that Yahushua is going to return. And so they're saying that Sam is trying to find out how many members are in IUIC because he wants to know how much time he has left before Yahushua returns, because he's worried if there's 144,000, his time is up.
He was allegedly given by Umar Gaddafi. But the question is, how do you utilize the money? Do you buy a mansion, a yacht, a string of polo ponies? Or do you send men out to gather the people to teach them correctly? Again, every organization must dig deep within themselves and see how are they utilizing the resources they receive.
What do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of this? Okay. This is the last clip of the IUIC interview, and then
United in Crisis, unlike any other Israelite organization ever. Unlike any other organization.
We are unlike any Israelite organization ever. This is what these guys really think about themselves. Just think about being a Hebrew Israelite in another group listening to this.
Okay, well, as you know, Israel United in Crisis, unlike any other Israelite organization ever. Unlike any other organization, I'll say that, because we are focused on the diaspora of our people. The diaspora, like when you read Matthew 15:24.
I guess maybe, Nathanyel, you don't know that William Crowdy's Church of God and Saints of Christ went to Africa even shortly during, I believe, his lifetime, and established a church in Zimbabwe that still exists to this day. Give me a second. I'll look it up, make sure it's Zimbabwe. But that's one example. I guess they don't know that the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem first went to Africa and still have connections there. You know, you hear what he's saying? It's like, even with his own religion, it's not even true. These guys don't even know a lot about their other co-religionists, basically.
When Christ said, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, I'm going to preface the answer with Deuteronomy 28:64. And this is what happened to our people. It says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, wood and stone. So from the time of the sub-Saharan slave trade, which predated the transatlantic slave trade, our people, which fled deeper into Africa, were taken from there and taken worldwide, even as far as Iran, even as far as Iraq, Afghanistan, parts of China, India. So our job, according to the scriptures, is to gather them, to teach the gospel to them. Because, for example, the slaves that were taken from India and taken from Africa into India, they call themselves, one name is the Siddis, S-I-D-D-I-S. And they are following Hindu gods although they look exact. If you saw me there, you can Google it, go on YouTube. You'll see people that look just like everybody in this room, and see their faces there. Okay, and our job is to go to them and teach the gospel of who they truly are. Okay, like when you look up Afro-Iranians, Afro-Iraqis, these are our people who speak a different language. They have a different religion. Okay, and they've been disconnected from us. So another one, when you go to Zechariah, I'll give you another precept, Zechariah 8 verse 7. It says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will save my people from the east country and from the west country." So here in the Americas, this is the west country. We're in the western hemisphere. The east country is on that side of the world where Africa is. So our job is to teach them the gospel. And men and women are coming in that know the languages of these various places. All right? Let me show you something, Sam.
Sorry.
I want to show you guys my screen here, because Church of God and Saints of Christ is the oldest Hebrew Israelite organization. Sorry, I'm not supposed to be on here twice. That's weird. Hold on, let me fix that. They're the oldest Hebrew Israelite organization, right? And, well, actually, William Christians is older, but it's barely Hebrew Israelite. It's just almost like Pentecostal holiness type thing. But here, when we look at this, we see the Church of God and Saints of Christ that is in Africa. Okay? Look at this. One of our tabernacles located in southern Africa. Do you guys understand this? So, like, they are also in Africa. They're not just, in the States. And my point by saying that is that he's like, oh, no one else is all over like us and the other state, in the worldwide diaspora. We're the ones who focus on that. Notice even here, Church of God and Saints of Christ, Bermuda, Toronto, Canada. See that? It's not just the United States. Here's Church of God and Saints of Christ. How do you say this word? Gauteng province? That's in Africa. Church of God and Saints of Christ. That's in Africa. Unless this is, which is always possible, a different group with the same name. No, it's not. We will let the sons and daughters of the prophet. We will let the sons and daughters of the prophet close to God. We will lift the name of Prophet W.S. Crowdy in America. Okay, actually, let me make this bigger so you guys can see this. My point is just to show, like, he's bragging about IUIC, but he's not even got it right. So, look, this is Church of God and Saints of Christ. I don't know what is going on with that picture. That's confusing, I must say. But look at what this says here. We will lift the name of Prophet W.S. Crowdy. First of all, that's troubling, to be frank with you. And in America, and Enoch J. McGajim in Africa. Oh, it looks like they've got a school that they look up to, or a guy at the school that they look up to there. But the point is, look where they're at. Look at this, Church of God and Saints of Christ, South Africa, with the I. This is in Africa. This is where they are, and they still dress like Crowdy dressed way back then, right? They just put up a video 11 hours ago. Are you guys understanding? I just wanted to bring this out because it's like, he's saying this, but it's like, nah, man, like, you're not even right. There's more websites I could show you where it shows that they are in those other places too. They have a whole TikTok channel. Here's one of their visits to Africa, of the Church of God and Saints of Christ. So here's yet another one. Okay, you guys are getting the idea? Okay, I think you're getting the idea. And so the whole point of saying this is that, he's acting like, hey, we're the ones who are doing this, but there's more than one group who have done this. That's all I'm trying to get at there. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, this video, this upload has gotten some attention of other Hebrew Israelite groups. For example, Elder Tahar commented on this video. Would you like to hear his commentary? Let's check this out.
So let's listen. According to, going back to Revelation 22, 18, 19, he's going to wind up in the lake of fire. So let's listen to what he got to say. Let me mute this.
Now, when Tahar says lake of fire, this is Tahar from GMS commenting on the Sam Kestenbaum interview. When Tahar says lake of fire, he means thermonuclear missiles. They're going to destroy America. That's what he's saying. He doesn't mean hell. And he literally titled this video, the word devil means false accuser. But he's not talking about Sam. He's talking about Nathanyel, because he's saying that Tahar of GMS is saying that Nathanyel accused them of something they don't teach. Listen to
his
this.
career by trying to
Listen to this.
associate him with a negative camp. And when I say negative camp, I'm talking about camps that teach things as you can rape women. A camp that says you can steal, just don't be, stay in the spirit. Things like that.
You're talking about Grand Millstone.
Great
Millstone.
Yeah, like that. So you don't want to,
So-
and that would be such a bad thing.
That is a bad.
So here Tahar is playing a video by one of his members, and then Tahar plays the video by one of his members who briefly comments, and then he also then comments on the interview itself. And what he's saying is the media tried to falsely associate Kendrick Lamar with a larger movement of Hebrew Israelites so they could smear him as being someone who believes similar things as GMS.
thing for you because now they have you on tape. Like I said, you on video. This is an accusation coming from your own mouth. Okay, so guess what? Eventually, the Most High is going to do a polite on you. Why? Because you're going to be required to show proof of what you.
So this GMS member is saying that the Lord's going to do a polite on Nathanyel. This is how they talk about each other.
Yeah, we're not teaching go out and grape women. We're teaching that the scriptures, the Lord says, if you grape a woman, you're going to have to take that woman in, make her your wife, and pay the father 50 shekels of silver, and you cannot cut her off. That's what we taught. We explained that to it. We didn't just blot out, oh yeah, you can grape a woman. You know, you got demons on you, man, wearing all black. We explained it.
Nathanyel has demons on him because he said that GMS believes that you can blank women, and he's wearing all black.
We made it crystal clear. And then you got these demons in the background snickling and laughing. Like I said, IUIC is going to come to naught. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom. On to the next one. Shalom. And you zombies, you're going to come to naught too.
So Tahar calls people who follow IUIC zombies. That's what he calls them. And he's saying you're all going to come to naught. And the other member said the Lord's going to pull a polite on you. So this is what's going on with IUIC recently putting this back out. And I want to show yet again, one more time, the way that they've been talking about this. Because this interview is older and they have been re-uploading it, trying to get extra traction out of it, saying the Israelis have sent someone to do a threat assessment. Now, let's take a look at this here. All right. Watch this. IUIC Sam Kestenbaum. Let's try that, okay? Oops, I misspelled it, but I think it'll figure out what I'm saying. And then let's try to see if we can go to newer stuff. Oh, it's because I spelled it wrong. You're going to do that to me? Okay, here, let's take a look at this. All right. So here, this one is 6 years ago, all right? Let's do upload date interviews. So here's Tahar's commentary we just played. Okay, you guys understand what we're looking at? I just want to show you how they're trying to milk this interview that's like, from 6, 7 years ago. So look, IUIC St. Louis uploaded this, and we've been watching it 11 days ago, although it first happened years and years ago. And then way back then, Nathanyel, this guy right here, Nathanyel, commented on it 5 years ago. Quick commentary on IUIC threat assessment interview. Are you guys following this? 6 years ago. Now let's try another search parameter. Let's go with IUIC threat assessment. All right. Look at this one. It's got a target and everything. The Hebrew Israelite threat assessment. This is probably the most offensive one. Israelis send informant to conduct threat assessment on the Israelites. But notice how it's got 96,000 views because of it 8 days ago. Sam doesn't work for the Israeli government. He's not Israeli. So this is totally dishonest. This is not honest about what happened. And if you thought he was some kind of informant and you were worried about it, why would you not just grant him one interview? But why would you then grant him a second interview? So they're very dishonest in how they talk about this. Look at this. Israelis send informant to conduct threat assessment on the Israelites. You see the way they're trying to play it? Now I'm going to tell you something. This whole situation exposes the utter hypocrisy of IUIC. Why do I say that? Why is that? As we finish looking at videos that they have recently uploaded to YouTube together. Now, let me talk to you for a second. The reason this shows the hypocrisy of IUIC is, first of all, because they're being dishonest about what happened. They know he's a reporter, but they're literally willing to lie in their title to get clicks and views. But here's the biggest hypocrisy of all. I have it as a fact, this is something I absolutely know, that in November, IUIC attempted to get another interview. Now, my source is anonymous, so this is one of those things where I dare IUIC to challenge me. IUIC, am I lying? Am I not telling the truth? That you reached out and you tried to get another interview with Sam back in November? Because my inside source gave me the evidence and the proof, so I know it's a fact. It is anonymous, but it's definitive. Now, what's the point about that? I'm putting my reputation on the line for this, by the way. I'm saying absolutely, I know for a fact that IUIC reached out to Sam in November and tried to get another interview. Now, my source could be from someone within IUIC. I'm just saying. I'm not saying who it is or what it is. But here's the thing. If you thought he was doing threat assessments on you, and he was sent from the Israeli government to spy upon you, and he's an informant, why would you want to do another interview with him? Why would you seek another interview with him? Why would you ask him for another interview? I'll tell you why. IUIC wanted to jump on the October 7th bandwagon. They wanted to give their opinion almost like a press conference to say, here's what we think about the conflict. By the way, we already know what IUIC is going to say. Well, it's the reason there's no peace is because they're not either of their land. They're fighting over land that's not theirs, and the Most High is going to give it to us anyway. Some version like that. And they think that also Ishmaelites are going into slavery too, along with the Edomites and the Amalekites. They wanted to get another interview with Sam. And instead, apparently, since they didn't get it, they decided to upload all this nonsense, all this stuff, right? Why'd you do that, IUIC? Why did you want to get another interview with him if you're saying he's sent from the Israeli government, threat assessment? See, this shows how disingenuous, how dishonest, how insincere IUIC is, and how desperate they are for attention. They couldn't get it with Sam for whatever reason. It didn't work out. They weren't able to do it. And so instead, they put this up, and they're like, oh, look, Israelis send this guy over to us, knowing full well he's a reporter. They've seen his articles going back years. He's even covered, Dr. Ben, as he's affectionately called in the conscious community. You know, he's done work on all kinds of groups going way back. They know he's a journalist. Why did you want another interview? And then you play it up like the Israelis sent this. If you yourself are seeking a third interview with him in light of October 7th. It's hard to have respect for you guys with that, to be honest with you. You're dishonest and you're just out for gain. You know, Titus 3 has some good words for you, though. Here's what Titus 3 says. It says a few things I think are very important. This saying is trustworthy, and I want you to insist on these things so that those who have believed in God may be careful to devote themselves to good works. So if you are a believer, I just encourage you, devote yourselves to good works. That's what the Bible says you should do. You devote yourself to good works, doing the right thing. This is what we're about. Christian, today is Good Friday. Jesus laid down his life for you when you were his enemy and a stranger and one far off, and did nothing to deserve that kind of sacrifice and that kind of love. And yet Jesus did that for us. We must be the most selfless, self-sacrificial people on the face of the planet if we're going to imitate his example. And that includes for people who are viewing us as enemies that we don't know and that don't love us, and yet we love them. Insist upon good works, especially as you ponder the amazing reality that is Good Friday, and then tomorrow where there was rest in the tomb, and then Sunday when Jesus Christ rose again from the dead by the power of the triune God. Devote yourself to that, those who believed in God. I'm reading from the ESV now. Devote yourself to that. That's what you devote yourself. So I'm not devoted to Hebrew Israelism and its downfall or destruction. Understand, I'm devoted to God. I'm not perfect, obviously, by far more. A sinner in need of grace who's been given grace graciously by a gracious God. You too. I get these Christians like, oh, Vocab, you would have been proud of me. I destroyed this Hebrew Israelite. No, I wouldn't have been proud of that. That's not what I'm wanting anyone to do. Reach out in love. Speak truth. You know? So I just bring that out. And then let me say the next thing here. Check out this next thing. Look at this. Titus chapter 3, verse 8 and 9. These things are excellent and profitable for people. So it helps you. This is good, as you're supposed to do, and it helps others. But avoid foolish controversies. IUIC went out of their way to stir up a foolish controversy for clicks and views where there was none. This is an old interview. Sam's not an Israeli government informant or anything like that. They love controversy, not for the sake of truth, but for the sake of controversy. Controversy for the sake of gospel, for the sake of the gospel on behalf of others is laudable. Controversy for the sake of controversy is not laudable. IUIC wanted to stir up, not avoid foolish controversies. That's literally what they just did. And look what Titus 3:9 says. Avoid foolish controversies, genealogies. Half the conversation at certain points was about the 12 tribes chart and related issues to it because, not just because he asked, because they carry it around with them everywhere they go. Notice how they go out on the street, and what's the one prominent thing you can always guarantee you see? A Bible verse? No, a 12 tribes chart. Because that explains to you who's going to be saved, who can't be saved, and how they interpret the scripture. It's the most important text to them in a way. Understand it controls everything in their interpretation, the very idea of it. Do you understand that? Even the groups that don't have it. Dissensions and quarrels about the law. Notice how many of the discussions were about him being upset about people not keeping the law according to the way they should. Dissensions, half these discussions in this interview were about dissension between groups. He even claims some of them tried to kill him. He's claiming some of them are paid off by Rosicrucians. Dissensions, for they are unprofitable and worthless, just like this false religion. As for a person who stirs up division, Nathanyel does that. Your pastor won't teach you this. He tries to stir up division amongst the actual people of God in the church. After warning him once and then twice, have nothing more to do with him. If someone like this is in your church, you got to get rid of them if they won't repent. Knowing that such a person is warped and sinful, he is self-condemned. Guys, I do wish that you have a blessed resurrection festival when you celebrate and recognize that Jesus Christ has risen from the dead. And as you ponder tonight, Good Friday, think about the death of Christ. Yes, it was a sacrifice and he did die, but it wasn't permanent because we see the other side when he conquers the grave by the power of God. Love y'all. God bless. Talk to you later. Shalom.